to lend my, I guess, pretty face to this project as someone who's going to go out and talk and speak about this project, because I think it is so vitally important to promote life and to promote the dignity of all human life, and to be someone who stands for ethical scientific research, ethical scientific treatments. That I was excited when Kim contacted me and told me of this project, that I could become a part of something that was going to save lives, and do so by having people come forward and give of themselves, but in a way that is ethical and moral and decent. I spent 16 years in Washington, D.C., in the Senate and in the House. And I had 16 years of people coming and saying, we come to Washington to look to solve our problems. And most of the people that came to Washington looking for their solutions to their problems left without those solutions being found. I can tell you there was no area that was more vexing for me, more troublesome for me than the issue of medical research. People would come and bring either themselves or family members who had a variety of different diseases. And they would come to Washington, D.C. looking either for money, or in many cases, looking for legislation to allow things to occur. I remember when I first got to Washington, D.C., it was fetal tissue. That fetal tissue was going to be the answer to all the problems that medical research, medical science had to deal with. If we just got our hands on some fetal tissue, we could do so. And of course, the fetal tissue would come from abortions. And I stood and said no, while I certainly had sympathy for the maladies that were, the people who were coming in and the problems they were having, that shortcuts by promoting abortion and promoting unethical behavior is certainly not the best solution to whatever medical condition you might have. Well, of course, I lost. Fetal tissue research went forward under Bill Clinton. How many people have ever heard of a single cure as a result of fetal tissue? The answer is none. 0 have ever been created, and the field has been abandoned. 10 years later, there was a new one, embryonic stem cell research. That was going to be the cure. That was going to be the solve to solve all the problems. And people came and brought in many cases, their children. And I'll never forget someone looking at me and say, if you say no, you look at my daughter and tell her you want her to die. That's the kind of passion, that's the kind of zeal that people would come to Washington looking for shortcuts, looking for whatever solved my problem, irrespective of the ethical consequences of how that problem was solved. Well, we stood and said no, but unfortunately we lost that one too. As President Obama came into office and opened up embryonic stem cell research. And of course, no cures, no therapies, and none anywhere in the offing. During the time that we were there, we said that there is an ethical way of dealing with this, of providing the stem cells that are necessary to do the kinds of therapies that will actually create cures. It's not as dynamic or as sexy or as embryonic stem cell research, but it solves at least a very important category of diseases, cancer being one of them. And why don't we pursue that? Why don't we pursue something that is ethical and engage the public in this endeavor? Well, we were never able to really make that happen in Washington. And so when I heard that they were going to try to do that here in Iowa, Coralville, Iowa, I jumped at the opportunity to participate and to help. This is exactly the kind of press conference I love to have outside of Washington. Here were people in the heartland, the the values of the Heartland, trying to engage people of the Heartland and of all across this country to give cures. We have proven research and proven therapies and more on the way, that if we can get the cord blood that is necessary to make these cures available to people, lives can be saved, and it can be done in the best spirit of America. So I am here today to proudly cast my support for Give Cures. As mentioned, we have an organization called PatriotVoices.com, and we are launching on that with emails and Facebook and Twitter and on our website. We're launching an effort to try to encourage people to participate in this very worthy project. One of the things I wanted to do when I left the presidential race, Karen and I thought about it, prayed a lot about what to do next. We knew that we just couldn't, pack up our toys and go home. That if we were going to be true to the speeches that I gave, that this is the most important election in the history of our country, the fact that we were not ultimately successful in being the nominee of the party doesn't change that fact. It's still the most important election in the history of our country. And we felt we had to engage, so we decided to devote some of our time and energy to this effort called Patriot Voices, and just finished my manuscript and I wrote a book that's coming out in October that talks about the Declaration of Independence and talks about how the stories of about 30 founders, which probably none of you have ever heard of. I hadn't heard of almost all of them either. But I started to do research, and I wanted to find people who were ordinary Americans at the time of the Revolution who did extraordinary things, to try to inspire ordinary Americans at a time where our freedom is at stake to do extraordinary things and lay out the reason why. We're doing a documentary based on the same idea, talking about the Declaration, the Constitution, who we are, where we came from, what's at stake here, not just in this election, but in our country, in our culture. So that's a big part of it, and then we wanted to obviously get involved in the political side. We're going to be helping candidates. And did an event for John Archer yesterday, and Ben Lang yesterday, and again today, and Walt Rogers up in Cedar Falls, and we're going to be helping candidates here in Iowa and across the country. But one of the things we wanted to do in addition, if you're going to call for limited government, you say Washington isn't going to solve our problems, then we have to be a voice, a spark for Americans to begin to take that responsibility back on ourselves. And one of the reasons I was so excited about this project is it's a great example of what ordinary Americans can do, who put themselves forward and say, we don't need or want Washington. We just need the American people to stand by our side, to join with us, to help fund us, to get that cord blood that is necessary, to get networks out there, just like we have organ donations. Well, now we have cord blood donations, and the tremendous amount of promise in this research and in these therapies. We just need to make it more known. And we're going to use our Patriot Voices to make it known. And I wanted to come here today. It was not very hard to get me to come back to Iowa. The only hard part was telling my kids they couldn't come with me. Kim was rather cheap in the plane accommodations, and so we got one ticket. But I wanted to come here and kick off this and be a part of this effort, and encourage each and every one of you to, as Kim said, to pray for this effort, and to, if you can, contribute, and if you can, spread the word through your churches, through your organizations. I see Bob Vanderplatz here, who was a very, very key and important part of our success here in the state of Iowa, and I know he's got a vast network of folks here in the state that could be a great help to spreading the word about the potential of ethical, scientific treatments, and right here in the state of Iowa. So you've got some great partners here in Iowa, and hopefully we can get more partners as we make this more known across this country, and that Give Cures will be able to do that for millions of Americans into the future. Thank you. God bless.